July 31st. I'm sorry for doing this in my car. It's been a long day and I'm still driving. But this is your legislative update for the day. My name is Bill McCamley. I'm a state representative from Las Cruces and Mesilla here in New Mexico. A couple things I want to talk to you about today. The first is at 7:30 in the morning, I had a meeting with many of the presidents from the independent community colleges. These are the two-year colleges in the state that are not affiliated with a mother institution. So for instance, Santa Fe Community College, Central New Mexico, and Albuquerque, San Juan and Farmington, Hobbs Junior College, Clovis Community College, all these have separate boards of directors that are elected from the local population. And so they can kind of make their own policies, whereas the UNM branches, the University of New Mexico branches in, for instance, Los Lunas or Taos or Gallup, or the New Mexico State branches in Grants or Alamogordo or Carlsbad, all of those are two-year colleges that have to rely on the higher level of administration to make their choices. And so that was actually one of the pieces of friction that I had for them today. So when I went to speak with them, I tell them, you know, my kind of traditional thing that I tell most people is that we're not doing well in unemployment. We're second worst in the country in that regard. We've had this lost decade where we have the same amount of jobs at the same wage level that we had in 2009, and this contributes to all of our out-migration, where our educated young people are actually going to Dallas, Denver, and Phoenix to find work, et cetera, and so on, and how we need to do better. And I requested them to do some things. That's one of the things that I requested them is, can you work with the branch community colleges so that we have joint policies? So when we want to do things like make 15 credit hours full-time instead of 12, cap the amount of credits for an associate's degree at 60 credit hours. Make sure we have these math and English pathways so people can get through and have conversations about things like, do we want to have algebra for associate level or some associate level degrees? You know, you do that as a systematic approach, because right now, if this branch wants to do it and they can't because their mother institution says no, or this independent one over here says yes and that one says no, it means we don't have a systematized approach. Now, their pushback on that, which is fair, is that a lot of times you're allowed to be more flexible for the needs of your community if you have this locally elected board where you don't have this big bureaucracy and you can change faster. And so that's a decent pushback. But we had a good conversation about things like that, things like creation of jobs where, you know, hopefully they can think out of the box, and they push back and say, we'd love to do apprenticeship programs, but there's no jobs. And so we've got to work together moving forward on higher education, because since 2009, 95% of the jobs created in the United States require either a certificate, so a welding certificate, electrician certificate, a 2-year degree, or a 4-year degree. A high school degree just frankly isn't cutting it anymore. And in order to create jobs, we also have to make sure we have the workforce available for those jobs to start and expand. I then went down to the Spaceport. There was an interim committee meeting down there, the Science and Technology Committee. There were 3 things that we talked about. One of which was just some administrative things regarding IT. There was a very interesting discussion regarding 911 service. So when I was on the county commission, I actually sat on the 911 board for Doña Ana County, and at that time cell phones were becoming a lot more common, and so it created problems with 911, because whereas before, if you see an accident, one person calls on their landline and then a cop shows up or an ambulance. Now with everyone with a cell phone, if you have an accident, 50 people call, and they had to figure out new systems for processing all those calls. Well, as we're seeing into the future, a lot of people are now texting 911. Sometimes they're going to give live video streams of what a fire looks like or what's going on with an accident. And right now, we don't have a lot of the capacity to deal with that. And though the federal government has some money to help with these things, there's no real plan in place at the state level, and we got to have that to get the federal money. So we've got to do that. The other thing is we had presentations from the Spaceport and Virgin Galactic. I will say that the legislature in the past has been really pessimistic in many ways about moving forward with the Spaceport, and the questions and the discussion about that were a lot more optimistic. And were questions about, okay, we see that you're having success here. Virgin Galactic has permanent employees. You're obviously having these undergraduates from around the world come and participate, over 1,000 of them last month. How do we get our universities more involved? How do we get more exposure? What do we have to do to make sure that the infrastructure you have is going to be a success? And I was really happy to see that moving forward. There were a couple people that were still pessimistic. A lot of Republicans still just don't like the fact that we spent government money on job creation, and you know, that's just a political difference. But I actually have a lot more optimism about this project than I have for a long time. I think it's already creating a lot of jobs in our communities. It's already giving us a lot of exposure, and I think it's just going to do more and create more jobs when Virgin starts launching and other companies start coming in. So thanks everybody for listening to this. As always, if you have questions, comments, or concerns on these or any other issues, love to hear from you, and I'll be back at you tomorrow with some more committee meeting and finance talk. Thanks.